Hello and welcome aboard, cadets. This is your host, Captain Gibbs, bringing you a bit of a surprise today. Instead of the usual BT lore, today we're going to mix it up a bit. We will be talking about Jurassic Park lore. Mostly in part because of the upcoming Jurassic Park Operation Genesis 2, or as the common folk refer to it, Jurassic Evolution, a game in which has piqued my interest as of late. So, before we dive into the juicy stuff, first I need to make clear we are going to separate the movie canon from the books. As one might imagine, they are very different. We'll start first with the movie lore, purely because the video game will be following this lore instead of the books. Then, to top it off, we will mention the differences between the films and the books. And, because this is a lore video, spoiler warnings in advance. It all started with a man named John Parker Hammond. You'll probably recognize this fellow. He is the man who, as he put it, dreamed up the park. He is a venture capitalist who is mildly energetic, to say the absolute least. He is also the CEO and founder of the companies InGen and the Hammond Foundation. It is his ambition and drive to create Jurassic Park that sets in motion the entire framework of the story. Now, both of these companies he has founded will be a very important foundation in creating his park, which is why we will put them in order of importance. Firstly, the Hammond Foundation, which was founded in 1979 with the purpose of initially funding dinosaur dig sites, as well as purchasing vast quantities of dig site fossils, amber, and synthetic eggshells. The foundation would also lease Isla Nublar from the Costa Rican government with the guise of setting up a biological life preserve, which seemed to be very credible, considering our lad Hammond owns a lot of parks in Kenya and many other tropical-like regions. Now, it is also important to note that the reason for Hammond's decision to put the park on an isolated island out of sight and out of mind was twofold. One, to ensure the US government would not interfere with his, let's just say, interesting genetic experiments performed by his scientists. This way, they could operate without any red tape when tampering with genetic codes, which the fear the government had was that genetic manipulation of this sort quite potentially could create a dangerous pathogen. The second part is climate-based, an island with more or less perfect conditions to bring back the extinct dinosaurs, that and its natural fog created by the geothermal heat, which could also and did in fact end up being used for the state-of-the-art geothermal generator, which was able to power the entire facility, making it very economical as well. However, mere ambition alone would not be enough to bring the dinosaurs back. After all, Hammond really doesn't know how to play with DNA all that much. Hammond would recruit a young promising scientist named Dr. Wu and Dr. Sorkin to begin research on creating cloned dinosaurs, using the DNA found within preserved bugs inside of amber and extracting fragments of fossils, which they do explain that they grind the fossils up to find the fragments of preserved DNA, because generally fossilization loses its organic matter. The journey ahead of mapping DNA would take them quite a while, even with state-of-the-art computers backing them up. However, they were successful and cloned a prehistoric animal in 1984. And in 1985, Hammond set about doing what he does best, making money and bringing in those investors. Which kind of leads us to his second company, InGen. Now, InGen would be founded in 1985. InGen is a bioengineering company with the slogan, "We make your future." Slightly ironic considering they are reviving ancient dead animals, but okay. When they finally broke 7 cloned prehistoric dinos, and by that I mean species, Hammond began to set up an amphitheater in San Diego, where he could display his animals to the world. However, as a testament to his character, whom certainly desires to shock and wow his audience, he would abandon this in favor of an even more ambitious project. That project would become known as Jurassic Park, an entire island dedicated and themed after his dream. While the park was large and could sustain many paddocks for various dinosaur exhibits, it did not have the capacity to grow the embryos they needed en masse, nor would it be a safe place for them to create new clones of dead dinosaurs, using their not-so-careful research techniques. InGen would then also lease a second island, Isla Sorna. They would refer to it as Site B, Site A obviously being more of the moneymaker, aka Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park. You gotta say like man, park, like that. Hammond, Dr. Wu, along with the Hammond Foundation and InGen, would build up the park and create new dinosaur clones. Now, Hammond would hire an A-team to run this ambitious park, spared no expense. This team would include John Arnold, the chief engineer of the park, and Robert Muldoon, who would become the warden, as well as Dennis Nedry, one underpaid IT guy. Spared no expense. For the most part, everything was going almost precisely according to plan, until an InGen worker accidentally got mauled by a velociraptor. Unfortunately, this said InGen worker did not survive, and his family, well, they kind of sued. Which the lawsuit of the worker's untimely demise began to make the investors worry about their investment into Hammond's dream. The board at InGen began to worry about the safety of the park, and decided that they would send a group of experts, whom they had used as consultants prior when building the park. This endorsement group would be led by a lawyer sent from InGen by the name of Donald Gennaro. The endorsement team would contain 3 others: Dr. Grant, a world-renowned paleontologist; second, Dr. Ellie Sattler, a paleobotanist; and finally, who could forget, Chaos Boy, Dr. Ian Malcolm, a mathematician, or chaotician as he prefers. The inspection in question was supposed to be a weekend trip to Isla Nublar, to tour the park and see if there was any legitimacy to the safety concerns, and if so, to shut the park down before any more damages could be sustained. All the while, this endorsement team makes their way to Costa Rica, and from there to Isla Nublar. Our talented yet underappreciated antagonist, Dennis Nedry, makes a deal with the devil. Dennis, while apparently finding himself in an economical pinch, turns to a man by the name of Lewis Dodgson, a rival scientist working for InGen's top competitor, Biosyn, which, fun fact, Biosyn is not only notorious for stealing other scientists' work, but they are also known for fielding more lawyers than actual scientists. Kind of reminds me of Harmony Gold with Battletech. Anyways, Dennis Nedry, who I'm sure is violating his non-disclosure agreement with InGen in more ways than one at this point, agrees to steal InGen's dinosaur embryos for Biosyn in exchange for an exorbitant amount of cash. He'll probably end up using that for some extra cheesecake if I had to guess. Meanwhile, in our universe, the team of experts arrive via helicopter at Isla Nublar, where they are greeted by some of the Jurassic Park employees who give them a ride on 2 of the park jeeps to take them to the visitor center, to which along the way they come across a Brachiosaurus and a herd of hadrosaurs. Now, while awestruck by the dinosaurs, we begin to find our team too caught up in awe of what they are seeing to really pay attention to the potential flaws everywhere, like Nedry the Slob IT guy, or the incredibly high reliance on automation of new and experimental technology that is supposedly state-of-the-art but hasn't been tested quite yet. Once the team arrives at the visitor center, Hammond takes them on a tour of the mini genetics lab they have assembled there, in which they are shown on how the dinosaurs are made and how they have been cloned using amphibian DNA to patch the holes that they have yet to discover. This does not sound risky at all, do not worry about it. They also arrive just in time to see a baby raptor hatch in the incubator. They are then told that they only make female dinosaurs so they can have control of the population of the animals, as to not suffer the threat of having their system overwhelmed by an influx in the animal population, which their state-of-the-art computer system is designed to keep tabs on every dinosaur within the park at all times. The party then goes to see the velociraptors at the request of Dr. Alan Grant, where they make contact with Robert Muldoon. Our lad Rob tells them that the raptors are essentially clever girls, in which the party observes Bessie the cow getting devoured by raptors. And by observe, I mean nasty, bloody, crunchy sounds, followed by painful moos. Now everyone then goes to lunch, because the raptors ate delicious steak, and now I'm also hungry as well. However, the party then begins to debate ethics and whether or not the scientists understand what they are getting themselves into. However, Donald Gennaro is the only one of the team who actually fully supports the park, being completely infatuated with all that money. The group then plans their full tour of the park before heading to bed. In the following morning, the group then meets Hammond's grandchildren, Tim and Oh My God Stop Screaming Lex, to which of course the children adore Alan, whom less than conveniently doesn't like children for some inexplicable reason. While on tour, the group stop in which Ellie Sattler goes to try to help one of the park veterinarians figure out what's wrong with the Triceratops, which has fallen ill, and has some serious fun digging in some dino shit. Look, not everyone can say they got to be knee-deep in extinct animal crap, but at least Dr. Sattler said she got to. Now, the tour begins to hit some serious flat notes. In most paddocks, dinosaurs are not visible, and the team find themselves rather disappointed. In the meantime, a tropical monsoon is descending upon Isla Nublar. Most of the InGen staff leave save for John Hammond, Robert Muldoon, Ray Arnold, and Dennis Nedry. They stay on site. Meanwhile, Alan, Donald, and Malcolm wait idly by the Tyrannosaur pen. A place I really wouldn't want to be, especially as the monsoon sweeps in. Unsurprisingly, Dennis Nedry sees the lacking staff as an opportunity to quickly disable the security systems, steal the embryos, and get to the East Dock, where a ship from Biosyn will be waiting. Then he is to get back, turn the security systems back on, and hopefully nobody notices. Unfortunately for Nedry, he gets lost, takes a wrong turn, nearly crashes, has to get his Jeep unstuck, and a Dilophosaurus spits on his face. And then helps him with his weight loss. RIP. Unfortunately for the team by the Tyrannosaur paddock, the dinosaur doesn't seem satisfied with just Frank the goat. It breaks free, eats poor Gennaro, trashes the car with the kids, and flings it with Tim still inside of it into a frickin' tree. It also brutally injures Malcolm, who is flung into some bushes. Alan then rescues Tim and Lex and flees into the paddock. Ellie and Muldoon find Ian and discover that some of the others must have survived and fled. They then drive like hell, as the Tyrannosaur wasn't quite done eating Ian yet. Alan, Tim, and Lex spend their time hanging around. Yuck, 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 yuck. I'm so funny. They sleep in a tree and wake up to some Brachiosaurus love, to which it sneezes all over Lex, which she kind of deserved it because she was kind of annoying. They also find some dinosaur eggs and have a revelation that dinos are breeding, and the park system has failed because chaos and stuff. Also, the frogs can change genders. Her scientists were too dumb to realize what DNA they were mixing, because of course they were. Of course they were. Back at Central, Ray tries to become Hacker Man, and technically succeeds. Good job, Ray. However, he has to go and manually restart the generators to the facility, to which he heads out to go and do. As time passes, Ellie and Robert go to check up on Ray, and find the raptors have escaped. Dun dun dun! Ray is more than likely Chow at this point. Upon this realization, Muldoon rolls for full badass mode. However, he crit fails. The hunter becomes the hunted. He then tells Ellie to run, to which she definitely does. The raptor then gives him the best snuggle struggle of his life, followed by happy scream and bone crunchy sounds. Ellie then goes into the generator room, then gets a hand from Ray. Well, kind of a forearm. Oh yeah, he's dead now. She then turns the generator on, and we're back in business. Alan and the kids get a shocking surprise, sending Tim flying into the air. Don't worry though, a pat on the back and he's okay. Kids are durable, I guess. They then meet up, restart the park security systems, which basically just make it so they can lock the doors. The raptors then find them, but it's okay. T-Rex is now friends with humans, and eats the raptors instead. They then make an escape. Malcolm lived, and so did John. Don't ask why I point that out. We'll get to that in just a second. Essentially a general overview of the lore of Jurassic Park. Now for the bonus. For those of you who plan to read the book, I'd recommend skipping this next part. So in terms of character, there are quite a few differences. For instance, Dr. Alan Grant is kind of fat, and has a beard. He's also fond of children, which kind of changes up that dynamic for the whole kid bit quite a bit. Gennaro is also very different. Firstly, he doesn't die. Secondly, he's no coward. He ends up being a very relatable character, and quite likable actually. He is also surprisingly fit. I'd also like to point out he helps Muldoon take down a frickin' T-Rex in the book, with tranq darts. He also fought off a goddamn velociraptor. He's no fucking pussy. Muldoon is also different. He also didn't die and is a raging alcoholic. He is also much older during the incident, around 50 with a gray mustache. I'd also like to point out Muldoon used an M72 law in the book. He's actually pretty badass. Grant, now I did mention him before, but he becomes rather insufferable towards the later end of the book, along with Malcolm. Oh yeah, Malcolm dies, by the way. They retconned that in the second book, but it's okay, don't read that, because it's trash. John Hammond dies in the book, and it's supposed to be this big moment of justice, but it feels kind of half-baked. All in all, the books does suffer from some mild problems, though. Compared to the movie, though, the book's got some things that are a lot more interesting, like the build-up to the whole incident on Jurassic Park on Isla Nublar is much more interesting, as well as much more suspenseful. However, it does suffer from Michael Crichton's terrible writing problems, which is preachiness. Very, very preachy. In fact, even in the first couple of chapters, it becomes very preachy. And if any of you decide to read the book, which I do say that it is worth a read, the minute you hear one of those preachy segments about chaos theory or fucking control or whatever, herpy McDerpy, just skip the whole chapter. And yes, normally these preachy sections will go through the entire chapter. An entire chapter wasted, filled with preachy nonsense. It's a long read, but it's a fairly good read, though, when it goes. And honestly, if you're a fan of the Jurassic Park universe, or the idea of it, and you kind of want a different take on it, the Jurassic Park novel does bring a lot to the table for you. It's also slightly better written, and even more so than Jurassic World, which suffers from some serious problems. But, yeah. And also, the second book, I wouldn't recommend that, though, because the second book, it's called Lost World or something like that, it is not particularly well written, in my opinion. Just personal preference. Feels more like a quick cash grab, if anything, just riding on the same thing that the other one had set up, with very little new to offer, though it did add some in-depth parts with Site B, aka Isla Sorna, and the whole deeper background and stuff with that, as well as John Hammond's original dream for the amphitheater. If you've seen the Lost World movie, the Lost World movie is pretty damn close, save for the part where John Hammond's dead, and they retconned Ian Malcolm to being alive again, but other than that, it's like, it's meh. Honestly, though, talking about this did get me a little bit thinking about that new Jurassic Evolution game, which is what I'm looking forward to, and which is why I found it as an excuse to do this video. And, yeah, that's kind of my only excuse for doing this. I originally thought I was going to do maybe all the movies, but then I was like, maybe just the first one. The first one really tells you everything you need to know. Everything else is just kind of continuation of that, and if there's a high demand for it, maybe we'll look into doing that, but we'll begin back to the BT lore. It was a nice little deviation, if you will. Well, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and without further ado, you guys have yourselves a glorious day.